May our lights shimmer anew. May we notice new possibility in those relationships that seem lost. May the turning of year give birth to a dream. May the emerging light pull a new story into view. May what is give way to what might be. May we believe again in the world we imagine. Here is our chalice. We are now going into breakout rooms to say good morning to everybody.
It starts here, in this moment, in this breath. You feel rising in your chest, this beat building between us, the healing, the hunger, the hope, the courage, the calling, the commitment, the drawing out of a new day. It begins now, in the imagination, in this story we weave together, this song we sing, this prayer. We bring into being from our hearts to our lips, from our hands to our life, our shared life. It starts here with praise and thanksgiving forgiveness and this humble, centering confession that we could be wrong. This promise that we make to keep learning, to keep trying, to keep our sense of humor, to keep close this knowing that we are all in this together.
Who will I be? Who will I be? What will I see? What will I see? In this great world, in this great world, who could be free? Who could be free? And what will I build? What will I build? What will I find? What will I find? My story begins. My story begins. Inside my mind. Inside my mind. Who will I be? Who will I be? And what will I see? What will I see? In this great world. In this great world. Who could be free? Who could be free? What will I build? What will I build? And what will I find? What will I find? My story begins. My story begins. Inside my mind. Inside my mind. In my imagination. My imagination. What is an imagination? Lucy, do you know what imagination means?
I think imagination is what helps people create new things all the time. Because you can't create new things if you can't imagine what you want them to be.
That is absolutely true, Jacob. Everything human-made was an idea first. You know, one of my favorite imaginers in history was Leonardo da Vinci. I loved that he imagined that human beings could fly hundreds of years before we figured out how to do it. And Dr. King is another great imaginer. His speeches about the dream that he had outlined a vision for how people could live better together in this country. It was all about having that vision first and then finding the words to communicate it and then being inspired to certain actions that would bring it closer and closer to reality. Do you like to make up stories? When you play with your magnets or when you play with your babies? That's using your imagination, thinking of stories and characters who are doing things all inside your mind. It's amazing. We have movies playing in our minds all the time. And it's really important to be the director of our movies, to recognize that we can tell ourselves stories that make us feel good or stories that make us feel bad. And we get to choose which thoughts we have. We just have to practice deciding how we use our imaginations. Can you think of something that maybe doesn't exist yet, or that no one has ever seen, but that can make your life better, or make the world better for those of us who are sharing it? I would love to know what kind of ideas you have about how the future could be, and that you're already starting to imagine, and that one day all of us will see. Who will I be?
Who will I be?
And what will I see?
What will I see?
In this great world,
In this great world,
who could be free?
who could be free?
What will I build?
What will I build?
And what will I find?
What will I find?
My story begins
Story begins
inside my mind,
inside my mind.
in my imagination.
My imagination.
What a beautiful introduction into our theme of the month, imagination. This story for all ages was for us. We are now going into our offertory. You can make a contribution on our website to UUFM directly, or you can make a contribution to our monthly Helping Hands recipient, which will be Excel. We have our speaker here, Linda Tiener. She will introduce our Helping Hands recipient of the month. Doug, if you could give the spotlight to Linda.
Good morning. Am I able to share screen?
Right now, you are not on the screen.
No, am I able to do so?
Yes, you
You
are,
are now.
Linda. Yes.
Hello,
Excellent.
Linda.
Well, I thought it would be nice for a change. See if it'll go. It's not, there we go. Oh, it's going crazy now. Okay, so I thought it would be nice for a change, since I've been here before, to be able to show some pictures while I'm talking about what's going on. Project XL is a program that is sponsored by UFM in partnership with the K-State Student Union and the College of Education. It was a program to follow your theme that was imagined over 10 years ago by a group of people in the region who wanted to do something to provide some special needs enrichment for adults who have developmental disabilities. We typically meet on Saturday mornings in the fall and spring semester on the K-State campus with the idea of giving these students an opportunity to experience a college-like setting for what they're doing. And we have students that come as far as 60 miles away to participate. We have students that come from Greenleaf and Marysville on Saturday mornings to be at our campus at 9 a.m., as well as St. Mary's, Wamego, Manhattan, and Junction City. We typically have between 65 and 70 students enrolled in the program. Our topics are designed to provide educational enrichment and to expand life skills for the students in the program. Yoga for the last several years has been the absolute favorite class. We have to put a limit on it because we can only take so many in that class. We've also done things on managing money, drama, learning about geography, language arts, foreign languages, cooking, reading, and other kinds of things that our students are interested in, but also give them some enrichment education. At the end of the year, we do a graduation ceremony that honors each of the students, and we invite family and friends to come. You can see from that overflow audience in that center picture that we always have excellent attendance at our graduation. The students share something that they have learned with the audience, and then they each receive a certificate of participation. We hold a reception following that, and for the last several years, Little Apple Pilot Club has taken care of that for us, providing the refreshments and then hosting it so that the very, very limited XL staff can take care of herding the students to see Willie, keeping Willie safe as everyone wants to hug and get autographs from Willie at the end of the ceremony. K-State students serve as mentors and as classroom assistants. They may do everything from actually helping students in class, visiting with them, helping watch the hallways to make sure that students are moving safely and they get to and from their transportation in a timely manner. I have to say that the coronavirus really changed what's happened with our program, as we all have experienced that. We had to cancel the last session of spring semester. We were not able to hold classes this fall because of space restrictions. However, we have found a location where we can do one session starting in March, I hope. So I am suddenly trying to organize an XL class that will happen in the spring semester. We'll be able to do one, I'm hoping. But we are currently looking for volunteers and for people who would like to maybe teach some classes for us, because this opportunity just arrived last week. And so I have no idea exactly who's going to teach, what we're going to do. So I'm looking now for people who are interested in helping with that. For more information, to volunteer or to suggest a volunteer, you can email me, linda@triufm.org, or you can call 539-8763 and leave a message for me. We'll get back to you. You all have been terrific supporters for Project XL for a long time, and I really thank you for the support that you've given to us. That handles it for me. Thank you all.
On the day when the weight deadens on your shoulders and you stumble, may the clay dance to balance you. And when your eyes freeze behind the gray window and the ghost of loss gets into you, may a flock of colors, indigo, red, green, and azure blue, come to awaken in you a meadow of delight. When the canvas frays in the current of thought and a stain of ocean blackens beneath you, may there come across the waters a path of yellow moonlight
to bring you safely home.
May the nourishments of the earth be yours. May the clarity of the light be yours. May the fluency of the ocean be yours. May the protection of the ancestors be yours.
And so may a slow wind work these words of love around you, an invisible cloak to mind your life.
Thank you very much, Sylvia and Dick. What a special music.
Rest in the Peace of This Moment by Chris Cervantes. Rest now. Rest in the peace of this moment. Be at ease. Look up at the stars and down at the grass. Imagine the stars looking back at you over years and centuries, across oceans of empty space. Imagine the feel of the grass on your bare feet and feel it, dry and crunchy, soft and supple. Rest now. Rest in the peace of this moment. Dream for a little while of young people and young animals, innocent in the way of the young, careless and uncaring, accepting everything in their newness. Dream for a little while of the elders and the wisdom they have to give, the voices that say to you, it is right and proper to rest now. Rest in the peace of this moment. Be still at the turning axis of the world and let go of the long unspooling of history, of sorrow and joy, and birth and death, and all the long years in between. Rest now. Rest in the peace of this moment.
Well, good morning, everybody. I want to talk about pareidolia and creativity. So, first of all, what is pareidolia? Well, pareidolia is our ability to recognize meaningful patterns, like faces, in other things. For example, seeing faces in the clouds. Seeing faces in rocks. And in trees. Or in toast. Got apparently the Virgin Mary there. Or in the fronts of cars. And we can see faces in all kinds of other everyday appliances and things that you would see, all kinds of tools and whatnot. So basically, it's being able to see faces or other things in all kinds of objects and things around you in the world. And pareidolia is not only interesting, but it's normal. It's natural. It uses the same processes that are used to, for example, recognize faces. And that has been shown in some really cool research that has found that the same area of the brain that is involved in recognizing faces is activated when people see faces in clouds or toast or car fronts, etc. I can show you some images here from this study that looked at that. So this is looking at the bottom of the brain on the right side, and this is the back and the front of the brain. And here, when people were watching or looking at pictures of faces, this area of the brain that's known to be specifically involved in recognizing faces was highly active. But when they saw other kinds of objects, that area was not active. Other brain areas were active. These were other areas that are known to be involved in recognizing everyday objects, but not the face area. On the other hand, if you looked at a picture that, for example, maybe this is an Oreo cookie with a couple of blueberries on top of it, that could be, with pareidolia, you could see it as a face. The face area was activated. And so what this is showing us is that when we perceive something as a face in pareidolia, our brain is processing it very similarly to when we see real faces. One other thing that's really interesting too is how fast this happens. So this brain activity happened after 165 milliseconds after the image came on the screen. So if you round that to the closest 100 milliseconds, that's 200 milliseconds, or 1/5 of 1 second. So this is super fast. This is, our brains can recognize an object or a face in about 1/5 of a second. And so this is, in general, people recognize objects or faces or things super quickly like this. And I want to give you a demonstration of how fast you can recognize objects and people. So I'm going to show you 5 pictures. And if you have a piece of paper or something that you can just write a brief note on, I'd like to ask you to just write down a really, really short phrase, like 2 or 3 or 4 words, the first thing that comes to mind when you see each of these pictures. And I'm only going to show you each picture for 1 or 2 seconds. So make sure you don't blink. All right, so is everybody ready? Let me give you a moment if you need to get that pencil or pen. All right, and if you don't have time to get it, you can just keep it in mind, make a mental note. All right, let's try this. All right, and so just write down whatever it was that you saw in the simplest 2, 3, 4 words that come to mind. Okay, all right, let's try the next one. Ready? Okay. Okay, so just write down 2, 3, 4 words, whatever super simple thing comes to mind. Okay, ready? Let's go to the next one. Same thing, just a very few simple words. Okay, let's go to the next one. Ready? Just a few simple words. All right, let's go to the next one. Ready? And just a few simple words. Okay, so I think everybody probably did really well on this, but let's check and see what everybody saw. Okay, so what did you see in each picture? So for the first one, maybe you might have seen a man reading a newspaper. Okay, and how about number two? Well, maybe you saw a man walking down a street. And how about number three? Well, maybe a man walking beside a road or jogging. And how about number four? Maybe a man sitting outside in a chair. And I was pointing to this guy, but the same thing is true for this guy as well. Okay, and for number five, also maybe a man sitting outside in a chair. Or it could be a motorbike parked outside a building. That's what I saw when I first saw this scene. From a couple blocks away, I looked and I saw a man in a black hat and a yellow jacket sitting in a black plastic chair outside this building. But as I got closer, I recognized that I had misperceived it. And it was actually a yellow and black motorbike. So what this shows us is that recognizing what we see depends on matching to our memories. So when I recognized a man wearing a black fedora and a yellow jacket sitting outside in a chair, I was matching each of those things to the memories I had of them. And by the way, I'd be very interested in the chat if anybody else had that same perception that I did. Please let me know. I was matching to memories of, say, other men outdoors that I had seen. And who were wearing hats. And who were wearing yellow jackets. And who were sitting outside in chairs. And so sometimes, however, we match to the wrong memories. That's what happened to me. And as I realized on further inspection, I had had a misperception. I had matched the wrong memories. But those mismatches to memories allow us to see under the hood of our own visual perception. So I first perceived this man and then realized that I was incorrect, and then realized, oh, it was a yellow motorbike. And that seems to be a process of creative problem solving done by the brain. And specifically, the problem is, how do I match what is stimulating my senses to what I already know? So we can think of pareidolia as a creative process during perception. Our brains want to rapidly match what we see to what we know. And so occasionally we can have rapid misperceptions that happen naturally and by accident by matching to the wrong memory. But those misperceptions are very related to, but not identical to pareidolia, because in pareidolia, you can do that purposefully, and you can also do that creatively. And Leonardo da Vinci, who was one of history's most creative people, understood this. And he included pareidolia as an exercise for aspiring artists in his training manual entitled Thoughts on Art and Life. So I want to read to you this quote from Da Vinci, which I just find really very inspiring and amazing. He said, "I cannot but mention among these precepts a new means of study, which, although it may seem trivial and almost ridiculous, is nevertheless extremely useful in arousing the mind to various inventions or creations. It is as follows. When you look at walls modeled with various stains, you may discover on them the likeness of various countries, adorned with mountains, rivers, rocks, trees, plains, great valleys, and hills in diverse arrangement. Again, you may be able to see battles and figures in action and strange effects of physiognomy and costumes and infinite objects which you could reduce to complete and harmonious forms." So let's take Da Vinci up on his challenge. And let's look at this photo with a wall modeled with various stains. This photograph was labeled by the artist as involving pareidolia. That's how I found it on the web. But apparently it was after the artist had taken the photo that she noticed this face where here's one eye and another eye. Maybe this is the mouth and the lips. So maybe this is a nose here. And maybe we could even have eyebrows and maybe some rouge or something on the cheeks. And so she labeled it as pareidolia. And in fact, I also can see another face here. Here's an eye and eyebrow and nose and mouth, and maybe this could be hair. Here's the chin and the cheek, or this could be a hat and maybe have a little top here. So yeah, it seems that Da Vinci may be right about this thing with stains on walls. And I have another photo that I also found in which it was showing a wall, a modeled wall. And again, the photographer labeled it as including pareidolia. And in this case, the photographer took this picture because of the pareidolia that she perceived. So I don't know about you, but I see a bald man here. Here's his eyes and nose and mouth, and he may have a little bit of a beard, and here's his ear. He's got a little hair back here. Seems to be wearing a t-shirt and resting on his arm here. Here's his t-shirt. Maybe it's even a tie-dyed t-shirt here. And then he's wearing dark pants and stretching out his legs, and here's his feet. And of course, that's just the beginning. I mean, we could have other pareidolia too, like, well, maybe this looks sort of like a scarier face here. And we could go on and see lots of different images here. So, yeah, I think that Da Vinci was right. Not only can we be creative with pareidolia, but I do think that modeled walls are really a great source for that. And that made me wonder why are modeled walls so good for generating pareidolia? And my guess is that it's based on that the modeled stains that produce pareidolia have the right kind of fractal structure. But what does that mean? Well, it turns out that some research has shown that fractals are related to pareidolia. But what are fractals? They are self-similar patterns. They can be found in nature. So in the fronds of a fern, you see that this shape here is mirrored by the shape here. So the bigger shape is mirrored by a smaller shape. And each of these individual leaves is made up of even smaller ones that have the same shape. And so you can find it in nature. It's also in geometry. Here we have a Sierpinski triangle where we have a big triangle. And then within that, we have 4 smaller triangles. And then within each of those, we have 4 smaller triangles, and it just keeps on going. And then it's also in algebra. I'm particularly interested in the fractals in nature. Here we have, say, bronchia, and here we have trees, and again, the fronds of a fern, or in river networks and mountain ranges, lightning bolts, coastlines, algae, snowflakes, crystals, ocean waves, DNA, proteins, the rings of Saturn, etc. These all have been shown to have fractal structure. And interestingly, several recent studies have looked at people's perception of pareidolia when they are presented with random noise images. So you create this image with the pixels are randomly selected to be darker, light, or gray. And they have found that people are more likely to see recognizable images in noise when the statistical structure of the noise images is just right in terms of fractals. So a fractal analysis of that noise. And so that seems to suggest maybe that's why modeled walls are particularly good for perceiving pareidolia. They might have the right kind of fractal structure in their modeling. And nature, as I just said, is full of fractals. So let's look at an image from nature that has, I think, a strong fractal structure and find out if you can see any pareidolia in it. So this is an X-ray telescope image of the region near the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And this definitely has some good fractal structure. So can you see any pareidolia in it? I'll let you look at it for a little bit and see if you can see any faces, for example, in it. In looking at it, I saw a few interesting faces. So let me show you one that I found. Can you see what I saw? And I also saw another face. And I'll show you that. Can you see that one? And there's probably, you know, an almost infinite number of possible other faces and things that you could see in this beautiful natural image. Now, pareidolia are also very related to what we call ambiguous images. So let me show you one of the most famous examples of an ambiguous image. Can you see it as two different animals? And you may have already seen this one before. So we've got a duck. So here's the duck's eye and its bill. Or we could see it as a rabbit, where here's the rabbit's eye and here's its nose and its mouth and its ears. Interestingly, I think that pretty much all ambiguous images probably started out as an unambiguous image that somebody saw with their pareidolia as something else. So maybe this was originally an image of a rabbit, and the person modified it, saw it as a duck, and modified it just a little bit to be able to be seen as a duck, or vice versa. And as an artist, I can say it's much, much harder to create an image that is equally perceptible as two different things. So there are a pretty limited number of these really good ambiguous images because they're very difficult to create. And one of the most famous artists for creating those kinds of ambiguous images was Salvador Dali. So let me share a really nice ambiguous image by him. This is his painting called The Hallucinogenic Toreador. And so let me ask you, can you see in this the Venus de Milo, or a woman's figure? And if you're not able to see it, I can give you a hint. So now can you see the Venus de Milo, say here, and also here, and also down here, and all over in these different places. So he's got Venus de Milos all over the place. And interestingly, I found in reading about this painting that it was originally inspired by a box of drawing pencils. There was a famous brand of drawing pencils, the Venus pencils. And Dali looked at this image, and he saw not only the Venus de Milo, but he had pareidolia, and he was able to see a face in the Venus de Milo. So do you see a face as well? And I can give you a hint if you're having any trouble with that. So here we see the face of the Toreador. Eyes, nose, and mouth, and also a necktie and his hat. And that right here, what we see is a study that Dali did for the final painting, where he was really working on bringing out the face of the Toreador. So you can see that face more easily here than here. But he wanted in his final work, of course, to have an ambiguous image that you could see equally as well as the Venus or as the Toreador. So he made the Toreador's face less obvious than it is here in the final painting. So now that you have probably been able to see both the Venus and the Toreador, we can go back to Dali's original inspiration, which was Pareidolia. And I want to ask, can you now see the face of the Toreador in the Venus? So, for example, here is the eye and the nose and the mouth, and it looks like the mouth is kind of open, almost in anguish. Like here's the eye, nose, mouth in anguish. And then here is a wrap that he's wearing here, and it's red. Maybe that's why he's in anguish, because this bull here, who has these horns and has been stuck with these spears by the picadors, maybe he was gored by the bull. So, okay, so yeah, so here again, we have this beautifully done masterpiece of an ambiguous image by Dali that was based on his Pareidolia, seeing a face in the Venus de Milo. So I just want to end by coming back to Pareidolia and creativity. And Pareidolia are fun because they take jabs at our consensual reality, what we agree is real. So for example, let's think of Pareidolia for cars, right? Cars in consensual reality, these are things that cost thousands of dollars, usually, sometimes tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds, sometimes even millions of dollars. And so they can also be interpreted as status symbols of their owners and things like that. And so here's an example. I found on the web of some celebrities who were proud owners of their car. And so we can interpret it that way, but Pareidolia allows us to see that car instead as a comical face. So for example, the squinty, kind of scary eyes and big hairy nostrils and buck teeth. So Pareidolia can allow us to think outside the box about things, outside of the consensual reality. It also, the last thing I want to mention is that Pareidolia involves what's known as divergent thinking. So that has been used, divergent thinking has been used in various tests of creativity. One of which is called the alternative uses test. And so, for example, take a common ordinary object such as a brick. And the question is, what are some alternative uses of a brick? I mean, first thing you might think is, well, you build a wall with a brick, but that's not really an alternative use. But you could use it, for example, as a doorstop. Or you could use a brick as a planter, or to hold tea candles. Or you could use a pair of bricks as bookends. So, and you could go on and come up with more and more uses of bricks. And so that's divergent thinking. And it's, as I said, a measure of creativity. And with Pareidolia, though, Leonardo asks us, how many different things can you see in a plaster wall? And that's all I've got. So but thank you for joining me. And if we have time to chat after the service, I would love to do that. And I don't know if we have time for any questions now, but if not, I can just chat with people after the service.
Thank you very much, Les. This was highly interesting. I think we should chat after the service in the breakout room. And we will now go to our music, end of service music, and then to the closing words. And if we do not have the music, we can go to the closing words right away. Before we go to the breakout room, here are our closing words. Go in peace, live simply, gently, at home in yourselves. Act justly, speak justly. Remember the depths of your own compassion. Forget not your power in the days of your powerlessness. Do not desire to be wealthier than your peers, and stint not your hand of charity. Practice forbearance, speak the truth or speak not. Take care of yourselves as bodies, for you are a good gift. Crave peace for all people in the world, beginning with yourselves. And go as you go with the dream of that peace alive in your heart. Thank you for coming.